Now we're going to have a little chat with Jeff Sparkes about Huw Lloyd-Langton. Huw Lloyd-Langton, Jeff, who was this guy?
Well, basically, Huw Lloyd-Langton was one of the original members of Hawkwind back in the late 60s, early 70s.
And he died recently, didn't he? Can you tell us when he died? And tell us a bit, maybe I know you've been having a look at his obituary. Tell us a bit about the guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was an original recording member of the psychedelic space rock band Hawkwind, and he was basically a teenager among musicians who were already music business veterans. And one of the mainstays over the past 40 years or so is Dave Brock, and the original band included also John Harrison and the saxophonist Nick Turner. You also had Dick Taylor in the band, and Langton described himself as overawed while recording the eponymous debut.
That was the album which had the single "Hurry On Sundown." I seem to remember, yes. And also another thing I seem to remember about Huw is that he was one of the more affable, and very, very close to the public. For example, if people went along to a gig, they went to the pub next door to the venue. Chances were Huw would be sitting in there chatting with the fans.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've heard stories from friends of mine who were big fans of Hawkwind, and yeah, they kept saying that Huw would come along, say hello to the fans, and Huw would class those people as friends. And whenever Huw played either with Hawkwind or in his solo band, if the fans turned up, he would say to them, "Right, I'll see you after the gig, and we'll go off for a beer somewhere."
Well, for many of the young people today, I don't think there's really an understanding of the type of venues and music that was going on in the 1960s and 70s, which was a lot of it was based around the Stonehenge Free Festival. And so when I spoke to Huw, who's now sadly passed away, May last year, May 2011, I started really off by asking him how he first came into Hawkwind, and then I asked him all about really what it was like being a band back in the 60s and the 70s, where money was really not what it was about. It was all to do with people spending £1.50 filling up the tank of petrol and driving down to Stonehenge to play some music just to entertain people. So here now is my interview from May last year, 2011, with Huw Lloyd-Langton.
I'm Huw Lloyd-Langton, an ongoing guitarist, but occasionally get together with the Hawks even now. Well, the first encounter I had was basically with Mr. Brock, who used to. I worked in a little music shop off Oxford Street, and Dave used to come in with his pouch full of pennies after a day's busking, or before a day's busking, or evening's busking, to buy his spare strings and harmonicas, bits and pieces from this particular shop. And that's how I met Dave, and I quite often passed him while he was busking in various locations in the West End of London. So we basically got to know him via my working in the shop and crossing paths quite often. I was passing him in Tottenham Court Road tube, the underpass, Tottenham Court Road. He just finished busking a number, and I just got back from a tour in Germany with the first band I was ever with. Which had basically folded up, come to a sticky end. But I just stopped to say hello, and Brocky asked me if I knew of a guitarist that might be interested. I suggested, yes, I'd possibly be interested. So there you went. We had a jam, and all went fine.
Now, the band was connected very much with the Stonehenge Festival. Can you give us an idea of what those early Stonehenge festivals? Now it's been replaced by this thing called Glastonbury, but what were those early festivals like?
It was always a thoroughly enjoyable time, because it was free, for one thing. And in those days, I mean, I think practically everything Hawkwind did was a free gig or a free this or put it. I don't ever recall getting paid for doing anything. Put I don't ever recall the weather being bad, and it was always a totally enjoyable, peaceful event, whatever, which is basically why it's so sad that they put their foot down and stopped it all. Cause it's but people aren't really allowed to enjoy themselves for nothing, are they?
Well, they don't seem to be anymore, Huw, no. Can you give us an idea of... it was one of those bands that certainly I, growing up, I was listening to them in the background, other people, I'm sure. You seemed like you were on a mission of some sort. Is that fair to say?
The mission was basically to entertain people, but that was the only mission, to entertain people and enjoy ourselves while entertaining. And it was always a little bit of a circus, the Hawkwind circumstance, as it still is to an extent, except the old filthy Luca tends to sort of get stuck in the middle of it quite a lot, you can only afford to do a certain amount with what the finance you've got available. But in the early days, people used to get involved basically for the love of just entertaining and creating an artistic circumstance,
A lot of it was based around this kind of vision of the future, and in some people might say a bit apocalyptic. There was quite a lot of that kind of stuff in there.
There is, yeah, there always was, yeah.
Why was that?
Well, because that is the way things are, really. I mean, everything is basically, at the end of the day, pointing to blinking apocalypse, isn't it? Unfortunately, it all seems to just compound itself, and nothing ever seems to have changed for the better. Doesn't seem to matter what anybody does. It just keeps on trudging on that desperate route to flipping destruction at the end of the day. The bottom line, I suppose, at the end of the day, it was all peace and love, supposedly, wouldn't it? But at the end of the day, it all comes down to the way human beings are. We all are, nobody's immune from it all. It just seems to be sort of relentlessly heading towards that state of that horrible state of destruction, basically.
Do you think that the music that we get nowadays, that we hear on our radios nowadays, and maybe watch at Glastonbury, out on these festivals, do you see a difference in any way between what you were doing and able to do back then and what we hear now?
Well, I think the only difference is the old financial flipping differences. I mean, these days a lot of it revolves around finance. And who might be popular and who might pull the biggest crowds and who might make the most money. Whereas in there are loads of bands that actually do Glastonbury and festivals, and they literally so they do it for the same reasons, just for love of playing and entertaining, getting out and having a good time. But there are also a lot of people that won't move without a dirty great financial magnet.
What about your band that you've got now, Huw? What kind of stuff are you up to these days?
All sorts of stuff, really. I'm doing odds and sods gigs with my own band. There's a couple of DVDs coming out. I did last year. A DVD and a CD, and the one at Gravesend last year, and one, it was an all-day Hawkwind gig at Leamington Spa last year, which is a DVD. They're coming out soon, I think, but I just bits and pieces of my bands. It is, at the end of the day, down to finance and what the old boy upstairs decrees. I've got a US, an American tour coming up. But basically playing an acoustic set with a band called Nectar. They're a 70s band, sort of a prog rock band. We're all involved with a company called Cleopatra, who are based in America. So, God willing, that'll all happen in August, September this year.
for a lot of youngsters, we've got loads of fantastic musicians in Bristol, but as someone who's been around for a little while, and someone who's been in one of those bands that really was a head turner at the time, that had a message as well as being able to entertain and provide good music.
God willing, whoever's in the band playing is basically doing it for the love of it anyway. And at the end of the day, the love of it and the effort you put into a show, God willing, actually shines out to the audience, and so the audience will pick up on that. If it's for any sort of negative financial reason you're doing it, and they might do incredibly well, but I mean, who knows? At the end of the day, it's an empty path, really.
Are there any groups you point to today? Sort of more popular bands in sort of top 20. There isn't really such thing anymore. But are there any bands today, or groups, or individual singers that really actually get you quite excited? Because there's so many of them nowadays. A lot of them seem to merge into each other. Are there any that stand out for you?
I don't know if you've heard of a band called Anubis. I mean, I'm doing a little. Myself and Sarah, the vocalist, are putting a few tracks together. I was just told to mention that, so which will be coming out. I think it's an EP's worth at the moment.
Okay, Huw. Finally, I just want your views on the whole free festival scene, and whether you ever think that we're going to have, because there was this whole clampdown on the whole free party movement with the Criminal Justice Act back in the 1990s. Do you think there's still an appetite for that kind of thing, for free partying? I
mean, locally here in jolly old Parkstone or Poole area, Bournemouth, Dorset, there are quite a few sort of free festivals go on. They're always incredibly well attended by a complete cross of the board bunch of people. There's always going to be an appetite for free festivals, and it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a damn shame that it's also expensive for people to get to a so-called festival. It's just, it's just completely out of a lot of people's means to actually attend those things. So I think that there'll always be space for, so long as they're allowed in whichever area, which is a sad thing. That there's so much clamping down on anything that's free because I don't know, because people aren't making money out of it, basically. Councils and God knows what, it's incredibly sad. Because in my experience of the freebies, I mean, they were always some of the most peaceful gatherings that ever have been. I don't ever recall trouble with the Stonehenge thing, all while I played there, which was residentially every year. I think towards the end of it, I think that there was a small amount of trouble started happening due to small amounts of people that were causing it. But overall, that they were very well attended, very well received, and loved by the majority.
Huw Lloyd-Langton there sadly died 2012, early in December. Now, Jeff Sparkes, what are your thoughts having heard that conversation with Huw?
I thought it was very, very in-depth, very interesting. I mean, talking about the free festivals, talking about Stonehenge. I mean, I'll also mention that there's a key moment in Hawkwind mythology that back in the Isle of Wight Festival in 1970, that Hawkwind, I think Pink Fairies and a few other bands, they actually set up outside the gates of the Isle of Wight Festival on the flatbed lorry and did a small free gig as a protest at the high admission prices to get into the Isle of Wight Festival in 1970. And that was also, I think that was the year that Huw Lloyd-Langton, around about 70, 71, he did walk away from Hawkwind. I think he had a breakdown or something due to the drugs he was taking. But, yeah, I mean, I'm all for the free festivals.
Okay, and also, now, I know when Huw died early in December, there was some sort of little tribute to him on Radio 2, I believe, Jeff, and you heard that. But the thing is, they played a Hawkwind song, Silver Machine, and if I'm not mistaken, actually Huw had left by the time Silver Machine actually came on, which is a bit naughty of the BBC, with all the resources they've got, to then play a Hawkwind song that Huw wasn't actually performing on.
Well, the thing is, with Silver Machine, I do believe there is several versions of it around. Whether that version they played was the original or one of the reworkings that Huw did play on, I won't know. They didn't mention it when in the intro or the outro of the song. They never mentioned whether Huw actually performed on that.
Because I understand that commercial release was around about 1970, 71. Anyhow, when Huw obviously had left. Anyhow, one song we do know that Huw was on is Hurry On Sundown. I know this is one of your favourites, Jeff. Can you just tell us a little bit about this song?
Well, I don't know much about the meaning of the song. I just love it's just got a nice beat to it. It's just a very happy sort of song. It's
a shame that I haven't heard it probably 20, 30 years on the radio. So anyway, we're going to play that now as a little tribute to Huw Lloyd-Langton, and thanks very much for discussing him with me, Jeff.
Thank you.
Well, it's a live version there of a song called Hurry on Sundown, which is sung by Hawkwind. I think it's Dave Brock actually doing the singing there. Very much a sort of local group. In fact, they're still... Dave Brock and some of the Hawkwind people still definitely around. I think it's on the Dorset coast, not far from where Huw Lloyd-Langton was talking to me there before you heard Hurry on Sundown. That was a live version. Much cleaner version is on their first album if you want to have a little listen to that. Anyway, we are now going to have a look at there's a guy called Alan Frankovich, US filmmaker Alan Frankovich. He made the definitive film for Channel 4 about the Lockerbie bombing, which was never repeated but which you can still view online. It's called The Maltese Double Cross, which suggests that there was a secret motive for the United States to blow up the Lockerbie Pan Am flight. Frankovich also directed a 3-part Operation Gladio film, and that was for the BBC Time Watch series. It was shown to stunned audiences in 1992, documenting NATO blowing up Europe.